Welcome to The Pool. I'm your host, Philip McKenzie. I'm the Executive Director of AdvancingDiversity.org, which lives as part of the Media Village platform. The Pool is a direct challenge to the flawed notion that the available diverse talent pool is either shallow or non-existent. Each episode of The Pool is an opportunity to engage with and hear from diverse thought leaders in advertising, marketing, media, and beyond. The Pool is deeper than you ever thought. All you have to do is jump in. On this episode of The Pool, my guest is Anastasia Dukes-Asuen. She is Ampersand's Director of Advanced TV Data and Insights. She leads the data and insights teams for the company's national addressable clients, leveraging unique data partnerships and viewing insights into STB data from over 40 million households. She's an astute leader and strong collaborator who works in lockstep with Ampersand's national sales and product teams to ensure proper execution of addressable campaigns and alignment with advertiser needs. Prior to joining the Ampersand team, Anastasia worked at Nielsen and more recently at Comcast as a senior manager of research and planning, where her main focus was scaling their addressable TV business. Obviously, I have an expert in the house with me on The Pool, and I want to welcome you to the show.
Oh, thank you so much, Phil. Happy to be here.
See, I love this kind of enthusiasm, the energy is palpable.
Oh.
And, I went through your bio, which what I found is that bios are really great for broad strokes, but more often than not, there's a much richer story behind the biography itself and the background. So I want to give you a chance in your own words to kind of explain, walk us through a bit of your career path and specifically how you arrived at Ampersand.
Sure. So my career path has been very interesting, and there are lots of twists and turns along the way. But I would say that each sort of job that I've had along the way has set me up for success in my current role. So there really aren't any regrets on my part. But anyway, to give you a summary of my background, I started out after I graduated from undergrad. I went to SUNY Geneseo, and I started out in the marketing department at a publishing company, actually. So that was a very interesting experience. I was sort of writing, marketing headliners and that sort of thing. But I kind of quickly realized that that really wasn't my passion. I had always sort of had an interest in numbers, and really quantifying things and really sort of coming up with really solid numbers-based recommendations and insights. So I had to readjust my path. And I did that by going back to school to get my master's degree. So I actually did a dual program at Boston University. I got my MBA and a master's in information systems. And after I graduated, I would say I jumped around in a couple different jobs, trying to kind of find my way and find my best fit. I kind of went back into marketing and then did sort of like a business analyst role. But eventually, a colleague of mine from business school actually helped me get a job at Nielsen to doing market mix modeling analytics for a very large consumer packaged goods brand. So I got great hands-on experience there. And that's really when my career took off as far as data and analytics. I stayed at Nielsen for about 6 years, then moved into a role in the public sector, doing research for the New York City Department of Education. And then I really missed the media industry. So I got a role back at Comcast on a team focused on data, leading a small team where we were sort of really scaling out the addressable business there. So got a lot of really hands-on experience, learned through a lot of trial and error how digital TV or addressable works, and was really able to make a lot of great connections and work with a lot of really smart, talented people. So was there for a few years, and then that sort of brought me over to Ampersand, and I've been in Ampersand for about 2 years now.
As you track through all the work that you've done and your various stops along the way, when I had an opportunity to kind of think about that and also reflect on, we had a prior conversation, a kind of get to know you conversation prior to this recording. What really jumped out at me was the strong research background that's so much a part of your story. And I'm curious how all of that, like you mentioned, those hands-on experiences, that relying on the quantitative piece of the equation, how that really applies to your work within Ampersand.
Yeah, so my strong research background, through that, I have really honed in on I've really been able to hone in on and leverage my attention to detail. I'm like super anal retentive when it comes to details, and that's pretty critical in my day to day right now at Ampersand, because all we do is focus on details. My team is responsible for all of the targeting and measurement needs for our national addressable campaigns. And we're also focused on data operations. So there are a lot of little details and steps and little nuances that need to be sort of tracked and understood, in order to make sure that at the end of the day, we are, building the right audience for the client, or measuring the right KPIs for an advertiser, so that at the end of the day, they're getting what they signed up for, right? So there are just a lot of really tiny little details that allow us to deliver on our clients' requests. And having a strong research background allows me to help my team fulfill that promise.
And that detail, data is something that, and anyone who's in and around the media, advertising, marketing world, and really any number of industries,
Mhm.
is really confronted with the notion of data and just the sheer amount of
Yeah.
information that is captured that must then be turned into insights. And that point you make about the details and delivering insights,
Mhm.
walk us through a little bit of that process, because as much as the capture might be the science, I would make the argument there is still a bit of an art to
Mhm.
making sense of all of this.
Yeah. 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 So, especially when I'm hiring for my team, I say, like, I'm looking for someone who has like that left brain, right brain thinking, like it's great to be strong with numbers, comfortable with large data sets, but you also have to have the creativity to take a step back and see the patterns and see the big picture, and communicate that back to an audience that may not be as comfortable with the little nitty gritty details. So you've got to be able to translate it in a really like interesting way, tell a story, make it simple, make PowerPoint slides that are super crisp and clear, and tell the story in a very, very direct, simple way. So it can be really challenging and grueling at times, but it can be super rewarding when you're delivering a measurement attribution report and you see, this double digit significant lift on sales due to a campaign that you've helped execute, and you've been able to drive growth in that advertiser's KPIs.
Having a moment like that, and having your work really translate to a client in a business that demands a lot, getting those wins has got to feel pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. But yes, there aren't always wins, but fortunately there are more wins than there are no are lack of wins. But yeah, it's absolutely a great boost to your self-confidence when that happens.
And obviously you spent so much time in the addressable market, and I'm curious, in your estimation, what is it about that landscape that lends itself so much to data and insights as a particular practice that adds so much value?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a couple of things. There is just a ton of data out there. And so there's a lot to be gleaned from that data. Set-top box viewing insights, there are just an endless amount of questions that people have around audiences and when are they watching and how do you reach them and what are their behaviors, and just the operations that go along with that behind the scenes that can be very complicated. It takes a lot of people, and yeah, it just really takes a lot of manpower and a lot of talent to mine the data, find the story, launch a campaign, measure it on the back end, make sure the data is accurate. It's like a village just for one campaign. And imagine we have many that are going on simultaneously. So that's kind of part of the reason why it's been growing as an industry. It's just that you're literally able to run a campaign and tie it back to an outcome. Like there's your proof of performance, right? It's just it sounds simple, but it's very difficult to get at, but we're able to do that.
And I'm jumping around a little bit, but since you mentioned simple, one of my thoughts was, as I think about the landscape of media, your space in particular, the ampersand promise, you
Mhm.
know there is so much complexity tied into making all of those things come together, and yet there is a need to make something simple so you can get an actionable strategy, right? Maybe elegant is
Mhm.
perhaps even a better word, right? You have to take
Mhm.
all of this complexity and make it into
Yeah,
kind of an elegant solution.
right.
Understanding all of that, do you see in the future, as we're capturing more data, as we're capturing more things, that elegance easier to come by or more difficult to come by?
Oh, I don't know if it's easier or more difficult. It is difficult. It is difficult. Maybe there are more tools and automation available to help streamline and make the difficult pieces easier. I mean, one of the core things that we're trying to do at Ampersand is push the industry, the TV industry, to push the envelope, and think about audiences first. So I just I don't know, difficult and simple. It's just it's a constant up and down, right? You find a simple solution, and then it could also lead to some other difficult outcome that you hadn't even thought about. The I'd say the downfall to being an analyst is that you tend to analysis paralysis. You
Hmm.
like there are simple things, but you tend to just spin your wheels and like really overthink things. And sometimes you just gotta have to kind of snap out of it and just say, okay, like, look, this is what we need to do. And it may not be perfect, but it works and it's better than what is existing. And that's how you take baby steps to make change and move towards, you know, easier and simpler.
Yeah. And it's funny in that response you said something that I wrote down in my notes and kind of double underlined this idea that ampersand is pushing the envelope
Yeah.
to have clients and partners think differently, right? and
Yeah.
and part of that equation is audiences first. And as a viewer of content and television, so not working in
Mhm.
the space, it just struck me because it would seem that audience first should be a no-brainer,
Mm.
for lack of a better word. But yet it sounds like by offering that, you're actually pushing the envelope.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about how those conversations even go, without specifics, obviously, but just in broad strokes.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the advertiser client and how, I don't know, I wouldn't, maybe not innovative, but how willing they are to test and learn, because historically TV buying has been all about, you know, demos, age and sex, and that's pretty much it. But we currently have access to an enormous amount of data that allows us to understand people in a more realistic way, their behavioral sort of patterns, their interests, their propensity to like something. So yes, it is a challenge, but I think that once clients see the lift in sales or the lift in whatever outcome they use as proof of performance, then that kind of seals the deal or makes it an easier transition because they're seeing that this is a more efficient way to buy media, and you're explicitly reaching people that you want to reach. There is no sort of waste. And then you can directly tie that media exposure to insights.
It's I'm going to use a portion of your answer to kind of pivot, maybe to a slightly more like personal development career track question, because
Mhm.
you are someone who is a leader within the industry, but also you manage a team within ampersand. And so I'm curious about that part of your journey as not just practitioner and deliverer, but someone who is leading, which requires a different set of skills potentially. And
Yeah.
that, I'm curious because that proof of performance that you mentioned about that you mentioned that is important to organizations. Like, do you have an internal sort of proof of performance that you use to kind of
Mhm.
check in on yourself as a leader, as an innovator within the industry?
Yeah, this is really important because it's easy to get caught up in sort of the day to day kind of hustle, getting through your to do list. But taking a step back, I think the way that I measure my performance as a leader of a team, first of all, it's like top line sales growth, right? Like, because we are a pretty core piece of the business, like if we're not functioning well, um, that will be reflected in the numbers, right? So we have to be able to support the business, support the national sales team, support the national clients to be able to achieve, revenue growth. Um, but that shouldn't be at the expense of my team and their personal development and their quality of life. So I do my best to sort of read between the lines. We have regular check-ins as a team. We have daily check-ins. I have one-on-one check-ins. So you really just, for me, I try to keep a pulse on, like, are they drowning? If they are drowning, what can we do to ease this up a little bit? What can we shift? What can we make easier? And I have a really awesome team because they're always thinking about, like, how can we make this painful thing less painful, you know? So it's really about driving the business, supporting my team, helping them reach their personal goals that are tied to the business. And, I also have my other little sort of personal goals that I track towards
Mhm.
and kind of keep track of.
It sounds very much like the audience first mantra that we mentioned a little earlier in the conversation is very connected to almost like a people first when it
Yeah.
comes to the organization.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, without the people, you really don't have anything, right? So your people have to feel good about what they're doing, feel supported, be challenged at the same time. And so if you have this healthy environment for your people, yeah, you're going to get a lot of benefits out of that because, yeah, at the end of the day, it really is about the people. You forget that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'm keeping an eye on the time because I'm always trying to make sure that I'm getting my guest out on time and all that good stuff. So I want to ask a slightly more general question, which is, kind of about the industry a little bit more generally. Obviously, like I started the conversation saying that, data and insights, these are fairly, you know, well-worn words,
Mhm.
often used and thrown around, even sometimes in situations when they shouldn't be. But, what do you think, given that setup, what do you think are some of the more misunderstood um, elements of someone being engaged in data and insights work in the way that you are?
Mm. I think people who are on the sort of outside looking in don't realize don't realize how difficult it can be sometimes. So perhaps we do too good of a job sometimes at oversimplifying, and so the underlying sort of grunt work and time and rework and all the little details that are happening behind the scenes are sort of unknown, and because they're unknown to someone observing, they don't so I you sometimes get comments or feedback that, oh, this shouldn't take so long, right? Like that's no big deal. Like, just, can you, like, rework such and such, and can we take a look at it tomorrow morning? And and on the inside you're like screaming, like, oh my God, no.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that that's one of the big things. It can be really difficult work, and you need to have a lot of patience on top of having sort of the skill that goes along with being a researcher or an analytics professional. Um, you need to have patience with yourself, patience with people who you view as your clients, because they don't understand everything that you're going through. So be patient in communicating, because, yeah, that's a big hurdle. Like, you just sort of always have to set expectations and understand that not everyone really understands the full day-to-day that you're going through in order to pump out this deliverable or
Yeah,
launch this campaign.
absolutely. I think patience could probably be good advice for all of us, no matter no matter what we happen to be doing. I want to get you out on this, and this is a more forward looking question. You know, we're coming off or in the middle of, depending on where you might be listening to us, still very difficult economic and social and psychological times.
Mhm.
And obviously we're almost halfway through 2021, which is
Wow, wow.
stunning. We're a few days away from May 1st, so not to make folks nervous, but yes, we are at the halfway point. Particularly, we will be even closer to the halfway point likely by the time folks are actually listening to this
Right.
conversation. But nonetheless, this question is again a kind of a look forward question. Coming looking back at all we've been through to get to this
Mhm.
point, what are you most encouraged by or excited by as you kind of look at the back part of 2021 within your business?
Hmm. Well, I think 2020 really tested all of us, and we came out on the other side in 2021 stronger. Um, we're working, it's a completely different work environment, right? We're working remotely, and we've been able to show that we can still be productive, if not more productive. So I don't know, I'm excited for the remainder of the year because like it's only onward and upward from where we've come from, right? Like it can't get worse than what it was last year. um, I'm I see the light at the end of the tunnel. I feel optimistic. I think that not be too tough on ourselves. We've been through a lot, and it's a lot of trauma. But I don't know. I'm just kind of keeping my trying to keep my head up and moving forward. And I think that it's only going to get better, and we can only get stronger from here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm all for thinking about always moving forward.
Yes.
That's a very positive kind of thing to have going on in your head. I really appreciate you taking this time to join us on the pool. Like I said, I promised to get folks out on time, and I think I've accomplished that. But this has been
Thank
a
you.
great conversation. It's always good to talk to someone like yourself who's a leader in a high growth part of our industry. So I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the pool with me.
Thank you, Phil. I appreciate you having me. This was really exciting. Thank you.